Okay.
Flexible.
Flexible, mutable, like life is. Okay.
Yeah, I can see the energy's already moving.
It's a funny energy. Like I'm bathing in the funny energy since like 2 days now.
That's good.
Welcome to Masculinity Now with Arabella Tornow and today's guest, Rolando. I'm so excited that Ray is joining me today again in this second podcast interview. Ray is a spiritual teacher, a breakthrough coach, and a catalyst, and helps to awaken higher consciousness on this planet. And we had our first podcast interview a while ago, and I really would love for you to listen to this episode again, because he is talking about his past and his own journey and his experiences in life. We are talking about the karma, the dharma, and the wheel of suffering, which is a very powerful topic to talk about. And today we have our second one. Ray doesn't know the topic yet, which is very, very beautiful. And every time we come together, our conversations are beyond what I sometimes can't really put my mind around, because it is not supposed to be putting my mind around, because it's supposed to lead me deeper into my heart. Hi, Ray.
Hi, Arabella. How's it going?
It's been an interesting last couple of days, I need to say. How are you doing?
I don't know. I think given where the world is right now, and given where I am in it, I'm as well as can be, and healthy, and I am awake. And sometimes when you're awake, you actually prefer to be asleep. So watching the world at large suffer a bit right now through this, what I consider unparalleled transition, is both a grace, but because we live in a dualistic world, it's also a bit of a challenge that I think I've been putting some extra effort into lately to not really buy into. But it's a challenging time, and it's also the best time to be alive. And I'm somewhere in the middle of those two polarities right now. So I guess I'm pretty good considering.
Can you explain a little bit more deeper what you're feeling in regards of our collective and what's been happening around the world?
Sure. Just for your audience, no, I haven't frozen on screen. I'm just I'm being a little contemplative before I respond, because that's such a broad sweeping question. It's a good question, but I think what we're seeing and feeling, more than anything else, we're feeling it, but I think what we're seeing is a changing of the guard. I think that the old patriarchal masculine that the world is so used to seeing is changing. I believe, though, that it's not just being replaced with the feminine. I believe that the feminine is ushering in an aligned masculine. And so I think that where the two meet, the feminine and an aligned masculine, brings in a proper balance. And so because of this, a lot of people have been feeling out of balance. Because once you set in motion a chemical reaction to shift what was into what is becoming, you are adding something to something that already had its own homeostasis or its own environment. And when you add a catalyst into that, you're now introducing a variable in an equation that is mixing things up. And I think people are believing that they're seeing one thing on TV screens, on the news, on social media, but many of them are looking with these eyes rather than this eye, or rather than with this. And I think that it's causing a lot of confusion. And so I've been called into hyper gear of support for a lot of the people that I serve and people that have just come into my purview. And I'm being invited into places that is telling me, I was told 15 years ago that some of these things would start to happen. And now, as my being is being requested in certain places, I know that this shift is actually taking place beyond the eyes.
Exciting times. Really.
It is exciting times, really exciting. Really exciting, as long as you can keep your perspective on that and not on the chaos that seems to move through our systems. The problem is when people are looking at the chaos, as my wife said to me the other day, I was stuck on something the other day, and she said, Ray, you're focusing on the dots on the canvas instead of on the canvas that you can paint anything that you want on. You're focusing on the little specks of dust that are on there before you put your painting and your portrait on there. I'm like, wow, that's brilliant. That's so true.
It is. And I have two things that I want to jump in right now. First of all, can we just right now point out how beautiful it is when the feminine and the masculine are in harmony together and in balance together? Because when you talk about your wife, you know, and she is able to see it from her perspective and can help you to navigate through moments of, needing navigation in order to connect the dots together. How does it make you feel?
That's a loaded question because it depends on the circumstance, you know.
For sure.
If she's catching me in a reaction, I don't feel very good, just like anybody else, because if we're in reaction, we're not in what I would call a resourceful state. We're not in our even breath. We're in, you know, like jump mode, right? So if anybody catches you in that space, let alone the person who you can't hide from, I don't feel very good when those moments take place, you know, but I've become much better at identifying that those are the best moments to change the narrative. So if she catches me in a moment where we're having a conversation and not when I'm in reaction, that's very different. But you know, if I'm being honest, I would be a fraud if I was sitting here saying that I'm any sort of spiritual anything if I was unwilling to admit that I'm still working through my own triggers.
100%. Question also, can you explain it also a little bit deeper? How does the chaos and the deconstruction and the realignment looks in regards in our own world? Did you notice anything in the work with your clients, or did you notice, how does it look like? How does this current situation that we are in right now manifests in our private lives?
Okay. Well, we could talk about this on multiple levels. We could talk about interpersonal levels, relationships. We could talk about it in terms of money, finances, and the economy. We could talk about it in terms of the medical institution.
Right.
We could talk about it on any plane of existence. But what I'm seeing interpersonally is that people are losing relationships that are lifelong like this. I'm seeing people who are awakening more to their highest and best self and to what's happening in the world and opening up to energy healing, things like this. I find that those people are, they're finding that the people who aren't yet quite ready to do that with them, or that are questioning, should I do this? They're dipping their toe in, but they're not getting into the shallow or deep water with their friends. Those people are feeling more isolated, and they're trying to pull their friends who are waking up back because it gives them permission not to wake up also. This creates a friction in the relationship and often a parting of company.
Yeah.
So, and it might be for a day, it might be for a month or a lifetime. That's what I'm seeing in relationships. And I'm seeing this not just with husband and wife or with friendships. I'm seeing it with careers. I'm seeing it with companies acquiring other companies. And then, beings that are awake in the company that is acquired, all of a sudden doors are opening that weren't there before, or they're closing and the person is being forced to go into another career. It's like God saying, you know where you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the economy, I'm seeing, I don't think people were really ready for a carton of milk anywhere in the world costing 4 times more now than it did 3.5 years ago. And I think people didn't realize this because other things seem to be sort of like, oh, a car still costs relatively the same. Yes, but the interest rates on the car have tripled. So your cost per month on the car, if you're not buying it, you're financing or leasing it, your price has doubled, even though the price of the car hasn't changed. When it comes to buying houses, the housing market has gone insane all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
People they can afford the house, but they can't afford to pay the taxes. So they get in, and next thing they know, they're selling the house a year later because they can't afford to live there anymore. When it comes to health and the medical industry, we're starting to see what many of us knew in the beginning, were complaints that maybe some of these things that were pushed a few years ago when the world was shutting down might not have been the best things for the world. And you're seeing now, as a result of that, you're seeing relationships sever, friendships sever because of two different viewpoints, rather than, hey, I can accept where you are. Can you accept where I am? Can we just be in the same room together and love each other and love our differences? And some people are gravitating towards no.
Yeah.
So, it depends on what topic we want to, to approach this through, or which lens we want to look at this through. But what I'm finding is a world polarized by a belief that it has to be one way or the other. But the good news is, and this is what I was saying, it's very hard when you're doing spiritual work sometimes not to buy into that drama.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're the trendsetters in this industry, then we have to understand that we're being asked to hold the light regardless of what unfolds, because there's many people looking at us. So if they see us not reacting, they won't react as much. But then there's people like you and me who feel everybody's stuff around us and everybody's stuff all over the world. I mean, this is how I feel things, Bella.
Mm-hmm.
I could be walking down the street with a friend having a chat, and all of a sudden I need to sit down on a curb,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all of a sudden I have to, excuse me for a second. I'll say to my friend, excuse me, 1 second. And I'll sit down and I'll just put my hand over my heart, take a breath. And all of a sudden I'm saying things like, 14-year-old girl, Japan, lost her dog, grieving, sad, angry, doesn't understand the world, wants to die.
Yeah.
And now I've just suddenly, literally, spontaneously felt a 14-year-old girl in Japan's feelings. That's how sensitive I am.
Mm-hmm.
So this is called empathicness. It is very different from empathy. Empathy is the ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and imagine how it might feel to live their life or have their experience. That's empathy. Empathicness is spontaneously feeling someone else's feelings as if they're your own. And that is a psychic event, very different than empathy. You could, if you're empathetic to somebody, your psychicness will enhance your empathy for them, but you might not just spontaneously feel their feelings. That's empathicness, and they're very different. So these are the things I'm seeing happening in the world.
Powerful. And thank you so much to also pinpoint out the difference, because it's pretty valuable and very informative to pinpoint those two things out. Because when you don't know also yourself, when you when you are not able to set boundaries with yourself, when you're not able to actually know that these things are taking place within your own internal world, when you are like on this path and doing spiritual work, especially, it can feel very overwhelming, and it can feel very, very, yeah, overwhelming, I think is the right word to that. So setting boundaries, knowing yourself and knowing who you are, brings me to the topic that I wanted to touch base with you today. And you even said it, and I think this is powerful in order to understand what we also fear the most as humans, or the emotions that we try to avoid at all costs. What is it, Ray? What emotion is it?
Wow. There's actually a couple. The thing I believe we fear the most actually is not a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's a state of existence,
mm-hmm.
of not knowing something.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think we fear the most, is not knowing something. Now, I don't think our conscious minds know that. I think it's the subconscious is actually running that show.
Mm-hmm.
But I think people are afraid to feel their feelings, and people make a lot of excuses and distractions not to feel their feelings. And one of the deepest feelings is grief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in the end of the day, what I read the other day, and it really, 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 what I read from Derek the other day, and it really made me, Derek O'Neill, and it made me really reflect on that. And I wrote it here because I didn't want to phrase it in a different sentence, but it's: the fear of grief is rooted in thinking that you can control life. So, and it comes back with the fear of the unknown, right? Like the fear of that we are losing our grip, and that we are not able to control anything. Because there was maybe a point.
What grip?
Huh?
What grip?
Yeah.
It's like you think that, you think you've got something in your hands. You think, there's a phone, I've got it, and then all of a sudden the ground shakes beneath you with an earthquake and you drop your phone. What grip? Like, you don't have a grip. Unless God wants you to have a grip, you don't have one.
And I think this is the most trap we are in, to think that we are in control, or that we ever were in control, which helped me, like this helped me on my path to understand where I need to drop deeper into my heart, and where I feel safety within myself, and where, when you tell and talk about the circumstances and the construction and deconstruction that happening around the world, which brings me back to the teachings, in order to, there is nothing that we are able ever to control.
Nothing. If God wanted to take your last breath from you right now, he would. And there's nothing that you can do about it. Except maybe, the only thing maybe that you could do about it is accept it.
And how can we do that?
Practice dying.
And how can we do that?
Well, you know, practice dying has a lot of meanings. We touched on a couple of them in our last podcast, but not to get too far into those details, I would just say, you know, one avenue of practicing dying would be to let things have their course. You know, for example, like I was saying before, with relationships that are just ending after 30 years, you know, you let it, allow the sun to set on that situation instead of resisting. What we resist persists, you know, what we resist persists. So if we allow the natural ebb and flow of circumstances to unfold, you are actually, in essence, practicing letting things have their moment, like a rose in prayer is a rose in bloom. But that rose literally is not trying to be human. It's just a rose. It will bloom for a week and then it will die. And so if we can appreciate the value of the very simple signs all around us all the time of things that just are what they are. You know, a telephone pole is a telephone pole, a tree is a tree, a car is a car. And if we can allow things to have their course. So for example, you want to practice dying? If you're a person who drinks a cup of coffee every day, appreciate every sip, you know, and appreciate when the coffee is a quarter finished, half finished, 3/4 finished. Appreciate when you have an empty cup, and appreciate throwing that cup away, hopefully in recycling. But, you know, like when you are in a situation like, wow, this is an amazing cup of coffee. Yeah. And then it's gone. Like, appreciate that. That's practicing dying. Don't be attached to that cup of coffee. Oh, I got to get there tomorrow morning to have the same cup of coffee. Yeah. Just what if this is your last cup of coffee? Do you know?
You bring a big word into this conversation, and it's attachment.
Acceptance. Oh, it's attachment. Yeah.
Acceptance.
Attachment.
Well, it's like the A word. It's an A word. But with attachment comes acceptance. With acceptance comes attachment, in a way of like that we understand to detach from certain things or programmings or beliefs that we thought create our reality and our life around it. And when I came onto this journey, I never heard about attachment. I never heard about detachment. And I couldn't really wrap my mind around why love needs to come with pain and why we can't control anything in life. Or I mean, I heard it before, but I couldn't really understand or grasp it because my mind was so into this programming of, well, but I don't want to think about dying. I don't want to think about like sitting with my grief if I don't have, you know, like a shake-up moment in my life that made me actually do that. Or I repress it and it comes out in other emotions or in other feelings over the course of your life.
What did you want to do? If you didn't want to sit with those things and you didn't want to feel them, what did you want to do?
Well, in my end, I wanted to sit with these feelings, but I did not.
No, before you came on the path, before
Okay.
you came on the journey, right? What
Okay.
did you want to do?
Well, I wanted just to be happy. I just wanted to have like a nice life where all my dreams come true and I make a lot of money, and then the money makes me happy and I can buy myself new clothes and I can sit and hang out with my friends and sip a little bit of margaritas here and there, you know, stuff like that.
Right. It's important that we talk about the things that most people believe bring happiness. But here's the thing, because if we don't talk about those things and we're just talking pie in the sky, aversion, attack, people won't connect. They won't understand what the hell we're talking about. So here's the big thing, right? What is happiness? Like, I mean, can you put a box around it? What is happiness? Because if you get a new, I don't know, if you get a new dress. Yeah, very nice, by the way.
Thanks.
You're welcome. If you get a new dress and it makes you feel nice wearing it, right? You actually believe before you step onto the journey, you think that dress makes you feel nice. You're missing the deeper teaching that the Dalai Lama would tell you. The Dalai Lama would say, and not Confucius, the Dalai Lama would tell you, you're allowing that dress to make you feel nice. And when that feeling is finished, just like eating a piece of cheesecake or making love with your partner, right? When it's over, it's done.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what? My happiness is gone?
Mm-hmm.
So what now? Oh, I'll make love to my partner again. Okay, that's called attachment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or I'll avoid that guy that's been hitting on me all week. That's called aversion or detachment, right? So when you begin to understand that those are the things that drive your definition of happiness, you realize that happiness is not a thing, but a destination that you're headed for based on your understandings, if you get good at it, of what attachment and aversion are. Now, if you want to take it a step even further, this is pretty deep or pretty high. Within every attachment, there is an aversion. And within every aversion, there is an attachment. So for example, you mentioned Derek O'Neill. He happens to be my spiritual teacher, right? So so for years, when I would see him at workshops, when I travel overseas from America to Ireland, and I'd see him amidst 150 people on these workshops for a week long, I was attached to wanting him to come speak to me, because he used to tell people, if I don't come talk to you, please don't shoot me. It's because you don't need it. If you see me spending time with one of your friends or one of your not friends, it's because they need it. If I don't come talk to you, you're doing great. That it didn't change me wanting his attention. Like, what, come make me feel special. And he was like, no, you make you feel special. Right? But realize, Ray, when you're making you feel special, you're no more special than anybody else. Everybody's special. Okay? Your feeling of special is you, Ray, allowing yourself to feel or not feel a certain emotion. What is emotion? Energy in motion. It's energy moving through you. So I would be attached to him, but I was averse to anybody else being attached to him because I wanted him all to myself. So in my attachment, there was also an aversion. Stay away. I want him all to myself because that makes me feel special.
Yeah.
You know? And in my aversion of anyone else pulling on his energy, I was attached to having it. So when you begin to actually see these things, it takes you to a whole other level. But before you step on a spiritual path, I'm attached to my jeans. I'm attached to my sneakers, my new car, my house, my dog, my family. How is pizza, by the way?
I wanted to jump in with pizza because it's such a brilliant, thank you so much for pinpointing that out. And I feel it will help a lot because it helped me in order to understand, oh, okay, how does it even feel when I practice detachment? And there's a difference in practicing. And I also needed to sit down with that in, do I detach or do I avoid? Because it's a big, big difference as well. And one extreme can go to the other extreme, and I don't want to be on both extremes ends. I want to be in a balanced form and to be able to be present and be able to enjoy the present moment, and while doing that, create my future karma or my future life. And pizza, by the way, is good, and he's doing fine, but he helped me to understand where my attachment comes, or what I perceive as being attached to him. And in the end of the day, it was the feeling of trust, and the feeling of like, okay, I need to sit down in order to give me that feeling that I was chasing, or that I was looking in to finding in him. And in order to understand, he doesn't belong to me, I don't belong to him. He chooses me to be his current partner in crime.
Guardian.
My guardian. He's definitely my guardian.
For your audience, pizza's your dog.
Oh yeah, pizza is not my food that I eat every day. He's my dog.
Nor is it your boyfriend.
Nor is it my boyfriend. I kiss him every day, but he's not my boyfriend. But and it helped me, because recently I thought he died, or I thought he would die because he ate poison. And I just share the story a little bit too, also because stories help in order to understand the process of detachment. And while I was sitting with him in the praxis, I realized, oh boy, I'm right now invited to see where my attachment to him, how deep my attachment to him is. And also when I prayed that I hope it's not his time to go yet, I realized if it is his time to go yet, then I am happy for him, because he's able to incarnate, hopefully as a human this time, I'm pretty sure, but hopefully to incarnate as a human. And he learned his lesson, and he finished his destiny and his karma in this lifetime, which made me really happy. And also, of course, my heart was filled also with grief and also fear, that where I was able to sit with it and to see, oh, okay, I'm attached to this dog, and it right now does hurt, but it also happens for me, because I don't know, nothing lasts forever. That's the only thing that we know, that everything is not permanent. And that was like, I think, good example where also practicing dying helps.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Give me 1 second, because I need to shut a window because it's cold. Just give me 1 sec. But I was going to say to you the same thing, that practicing dying can be as simple as allowing things to be what they are, and to take the normal course of action that they need to take, and not try to force something that isn't. In other words, if it was his time to go, there's nothing that you can do. So in a moment like that, because he ate the poison, you have to accept, well, if he needs to leave, then he needs to leave. And yes, there is a chance that he very well could be human in his next incarnation. It's also interesting to note that sometimes very evolved beings will choose the animal realm as their next incarnation.
That is very interesting. I don't think that was the thing with him. I'm kidding.
Generally, you would, if you're looking at the karmic wheel from the last podcast, this is just something from the last time we spoke, but if you look at the karmic wheel, it's literally a circle. And at the very bottom, at like 6 o'clock on the wheel, you have the hell realms, right? The bottom. At like 4 o'clock, you have like 3, 4 o'clock, you have the hungry ghosts, those that get trapped between worlds, you know, because they're holding on to something here that they haven't let go of, where someone here is holding on to them and not releasing them. They're the hungry ghosts. Okay.
I want to crash in, because perfect. Thank you so much for pinpointing that out again. When you listen to this podcast, you should definitely, and it interests you, you should definitely watch the first episode where we talk a little bit deeper about the wheel of karma and what it is. And attachment, especially when we know those teachings, and when we actually know what can do, like what our attachment can do to our loved one that passed, we want to redirect, or we want to discover or rethink our attachment once again. Because like Ray, what can it do when, for example, our father, our mother, our best friend died, and we didn't fully release, first of all, our grief. Our grief may be manifested in anger, in like feeling depressed or whatsoever. And every time when we talk about this person, maybe this person died 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatsoever, it doesn't matter. But we still need to process it. What can actually happen when we didn't deal with the grief?
Well, I'd like to let me, if I can, just finish what I was going to say, right? So there's, and then I'll segue right into that answer, right? So at 6 o'clock, you've got the hell realms. At 4 o'clock, you've got the hungry ghost realms, which we'll come back to in 1 minute. At 8 o'clock, you have the animal realm. Okay, 7 o'clock, actually, 7 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, you have the human realm. At 12 o'clock, you have the God realm. No, God, like Jesus, Buddha, right? And then at like 2 o'clock, you have the demigod realm. The demigods are like the saints that are arguing with the gods to give humans the teachings to liberate themselves from this wheel.
When we pray, for example, to Archangel Michael or to our angels, is that what you mean?
When we're praying to like like Saint Francis or the patron saint of like Saint Joseph or something like this, or
Saint Patrick,
Saint Patrick, Padre Pio, things like this. The angels, perhaps, but the angels, they're a little different because the angels are essentially they're not on the wheel.
Okay, thanks for clarifying this, because that actually like made me confused because I was like, I don't understand that.
The angels, if you look at the wheel, karmic wheel of suffering, you'll see the angelic realm outside the wheel. So they're not actually on the wheel. They transcend karma because they're not humans. So they don't have the karma that ties them to this. They were made to serve the Lord.
Okay.
Right? You can have fallen angels like Lucifer. That's the hell realms. Okay. Because they had human attributes of, for example, jealousy that led Lucifer to fight a rebellion against God. Then he's a fallen angel and he's in the hell realms, and Lucifer is actually the king of hell, right? But to your point, you could actually argue, is someone are they in the hell realms when they can't let go of someone who's died? They're human, but are they not in the depths of hell and sorrow and grief if they can't release someone? Right? Which is part of your question. When we lose a loved one and we don't do our due diligence to let them go, that hook is like a fisherman with a rod and a hook in the mouth of the fish, and the fish is the loved one that you have lost, but you're actually pulling them towards the earth plane with the magnetism of your sorrow, which can actually trap them in the hungry ghost realm and keep them there and prevent them from actually transcending and moving into their next incarnation. That, I think, is the answer to your question.
Thank you. Thank you. And you actually, how can
And I was gonna say that, very evolved beings might, when they get off the wheel and they die, when they die, all souls go to the astral plane. okay? When they're in the astral plane, which is where we go when we sleep, but it's also where we go when our bodies go to sleep permanently.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when we go there, you go into a life review process, not the person, the soul goes into a life review. So the dog would go into a life review also, you know,
Yeah.
very evolved souls might choose to come back as your companion, pizza, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have a mission to help you with something that only an animal that cannot speak back can provide. So they have a shorter life with a higher mission. Now, this is called an exception to the rule, but it can happen because generally the animal realm is lower incarnation than the human realm. But if a soul chooses that consciously, that soul might be the equivalent of, say, Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can even feel it, you know, like everything what we are talking right now, it might doesn't make sense in the logical mind because it's not supposed to make sense in the logical mind, but you can feel the energy, the truth of the energy, and the truth of the things that we are like talking right now. Because when you look at your pet, or when you look at like someone or something, sometimes you have the feeling, wow, like you really understand me. And I don't know why, but I have the feeling you do something for me. And I have this also like with pizza, because he can't talk, he's able to really process and transcend my emotions that I can't sometimes only do on my own. Like when I feel, because when I look at him, like for now, we take the poison. I am aware that he ate poison, but the minute I had a moment to reflect onto it, and not when I'm in reaction, because my first reaction was to get him to the praxis, to the doctor. But when I was sitting there and I was thinking and reflecting, I was, what did I poison my mind? What came, like, what was that I did that he reflected me back? What are your thoughts to that, Ray? Like, how can we move through life with the lens of that everything is happening for us in order to help us grow?
Um, Back in 2008, when I made my way over to Ireland for the first time, and I watched Derek speak in the front of the room, I was in love. I didn't know what I exactly was in love with. I went through this thing thinking, oh my God, is he like a celebrity to me? Is that how I feel? Like I'm in love with or like idolatrizing somebody, like they're my idol, you know? And what it was this very thing that you talk about. You know, you look at something or someone and you know that they can see and understand you in a way that you've never been validated before. And in essence, he taught me that I was in love with myself. You know, he taught me that when I'm looking at him in the front of the room and doing what he's doing, which was very magical. I mean, I saw things that transcended physics, you know, as we understand it. I saw him physically dipping into the quantum realm and pulling things out of the quantum realm into the room, you know. So but he told me privately and publicly, but privately he told me, you're witnessing the highest sense of you on this dimension mirrored back to you through your own projection that you think is me. And so he would repeat this in various ways through workshops over the years, but what he said was that at the simplest level of this teaching, he was saying, Nothing is ever happening to you. It's happening for you to awaken and enlighten you, to get you to realize that all of it is you. So we could spend hours upon hours in a podcast talking at what level is he referring to? Like, for example, is there no computer screen here? Is Bella not actually having a conversation with me? Is there no me and Bella? Did I create Bella having this conversation with me? Do you know, or is what he's saying is my perception of Bella is mine and mine alone? Right? So what level is such a teacher? I believe Derek to be fully enlightened. So what perspective is a fully enlightened being? For example, some being like Krishna, you know, or Jesus or Buddha. What level are they speaking at? The Dalai Lama. Dalai Lama is interesting, actually. Do you know how the Dalai Lama is chosen in this lifetime?
Oh, you told me about this one time and I forgot it. Ignorant.
It's quite fascinating, actually. I don't think that you forgot it. I think that you're going to a deeper level with the teaching, okay? Because you're having this conversation for your community, right? And I think that it's important to understand these beings on this planet, their journeys are magic. So the Dalai Lama, the way it works, now you know the Dalai Lama is Chinese, but he defected from China during the war, and he went to Nepal. So he's actually in India, right? So what's interesting is he was, the way that the Dalai Lama's entire life is set up, it is literally a setup. So it's a mirror for humanity and those that follow him to say, this is a game. Don't you understand? So essentially the Dalai Lama, who friends of mine have met, he has actually come in to some of my sessions. Like one in particular, I did a session with somebody once and I was sitting and the person was late. And I was waiting for them to come sit down with me. First time they ever met me in a professional setting. And I was sitting and meditating, waiting for this person to show up. And while I was meditating, the Dalai Lama, who had never spoken to me before that I was aware of, said, "Tell her that I said hello when she arrives." So when this person sat down across from me 5 minutes later, we started talking and I was pleasantries and whatnot. And I said to them, "Do you know the Dalai Lama came into my meditation and he says hello to you?" And she goes, "You know, I met him, right?" I said, "No, I didn't know that you met him." You know, but this is how these beings operate. So the way the Dalai Lama is chosen is the Dalai Lama has a close group of people called Rinpoches that are around him, that serve him his entire installation into the Dalai Lamahood, right? So they are lamas themselves, studying over lifetimes to ensure that they raise their frequency, their vibration every time they come back and they're reincarnated, not the human, the soul in another body. So these Rinpoches are chosen at a very early age by the Lamic lineage to be the people who are with the Dalai Lama once he is installed. So the way he's chosen is somewhere along the way when the Dalai Lama is about to leave the planet, they tell their Rinpoches, okay, next Thursday at 3:27 in the afternoon, I will take Maha Samadhi, which is their final meditation. And I will leave this physical form through my crown chakra. It's very specific. Next Thursday at 3:27 p.m., I will be leaving my physical form. Are you prepared? And they say, yes, master, we're prepared. What that means is the Dalai Lama's next statement is great. Have you got the 100 items together? And they say, yes. Great. Are 3 of them items that belong to me and me alone and nobody else? And they say, yes. They say, wonderful. I will be reborn into another body within 48 days in this village to these parents in that town. In 3 years and 48 days on this child's 3rd birthday, you are to go to their door and knock and explain who you are. They should know by how you're dressed. But you need to explain to the parents, we need to see your son.
Mm-hmm.
We believe him to be the next Dalai Lama.
Mm-hmm.
And this is on the child's 3rd birthday. There could be family members there celebrating, and these Rinpoches show up at the door with 100 items. The parents let them in. They take out very sacred cloths, and they lay out all 100 items on the cloth. Then they invite the child over. And without telling the child knows only to touch 3 items on that cloth. And it's the 3 items that belong to the former Dalai Lama. If that child so much as looks at another item, it is not the Dalai Lama. So that child will literally just walk over because that child is fully awake.
Yeah.
That child, let me say it a different way. That child was waiting for its parents to know that a knock was coming at the door.
Yeah.
Okay? That's how awake this child is. Then they come in, child looks at the Rinpoches, gives a little nod, playing the game, then walks over and 1, 2, 3, selects all items out of 100. They have a 3% chance to get the first item correct.
Mm-hmm.
They have less than that to get the second item correct. And they have even less than that to get the third item correct. And and then the Rinpoches tell the parents, we need this child to come live with us at the ashram so we can prepare him for Dalai Lamahood. Now, you and I were talking about attachment. How do you think that mother feels? That father, you're taking my 3-year-old son? Yes, he's the Dalai Lama. What to do now? Can we visit him every day? Why? Because the parents are attached, not the child. The reason I'm telling this story today is because it's not a story. This is actually the way the Dalai Lama that today, that Dalai Lama was chosen this way.
Mm-hmm.
People who are awakening need to understand that there's more than this, sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, all the 5 senses. There's more to life than the 5 senses, but most people have bought into only that.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, they've bought into the 5 false gods: sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. And as a result, they've bought into the materialism of being in a body rather than the spiritualism of being in a body. And what's happening in the world right now, in this polarity that I referred to earlier in our conversation, is about people, beings, not people, beings, including animals, returning to spiritualism. So my teacher, Derek, knows the Dalai Lama personally. And he went and told the Dalai Lama what's wrong with his lamas.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Can you tell the story with the fire pit?
Sure. So essentially, Derek went on an expedition back to Nepal to meet with the Dalai Lama. And he went with his assistant, an acquaintance of mine, and they were walking up the path to get to where they were going. I believe they were headed, because they also met with the Karmapa, not just with the Dalai Lama, but they met with the Karmapa also. So they were, I think they were on their way to see the Dalai Lama, and they were headed up a path in the evening hours. And then there were several campfires along the path. And Derek, being Irish and being a leprechaun as he is, he decides to walk over to one of these campfires with his assistant and sit down. And of course, being white in Nepal, the first thing that he's met with is, are you kidding me? So he just sits there and they stop talking. The lamas, the priests, the Buddhist priests, they stop talking. They stop teaching their groups. And they look at him and they say, we are so sorry. These teachings are too profound for a white man. Now, Derek, knowing what's up, fully expected this and was giving his assistant a lesson. He was giving his assistant a lesson, and it was this. He looked at the Lama and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. May I ask, what is too profound for a white man? Like, which part? You talking about the Tibetan wheel of suffering with the 6 dimensions, the hungry ghost realm, the hell realm, the animal realm, the human realm, the God realm, and the demigod realm. And that when somebody transitions from this life into the next life, they go to the astral plane, just like we do when we go to sleep, except this time they go there for a life review. And while they're there for either 1/1,000,000th of a second up to 48 human days. And by the 49th day, they must be reborn per their karma, unless they transcend the wheel, in which case they can get off for a period of. And at that stage, the Lama's chin hit the floor. And Derek just basically went, listen, do you know it's okay that you judged me? It's okay. It's because you don't remember who I am, do you? It's okay that you judge me. But the problem that I see, because you guys have it as close to the truth as any religion that I've ever seen, definitely closer than my Roman Catholicism that I was raised with in good old Ireland. Okay. The problem is you have 60 campfires or 6 different campfires with 6 different teachers. You should have 1 campfire. And I will tell your boss when I see him tomorrow that he's got work to do with his underlings. Have a good night. So the white man, he decided it was too profound for him and he continued to walk up the path. But, how do I live my life every day knowing that my teacher is in the world and his consciousness is so elevated that he knows that I'm having this conversation with you? And he just made a presence felt in the room a moment ago. Like how do I feel knowing that? I actually feel very loved.
Love is the word that I want to touch upon. Unconditional love, and also connected to the grief and to
I knew you were going there. Okay.
Because in the end of the day, and it comes back to masculine, feminine, everything, what I also want to really pinpoint out on this podcast and in our conversation, and you know, what life is all about and why it is so important to connect deeper to our own truth and to connect deeper to our heart and to listen to those stories and to trust beyond reason, you know, and to really fully
Somebody's applying the teachings.
I do, because it makes my life so much more in ease, and to accept moments of frustration and moments of anger or situations where I know to apply that. These teachings help me to apply is one thing, to know these teachings is the other thing, to apply these teachings. And I made myself the promise that every time when I feel a certain feeling, is it a feeling of not being wanted, or a feeling of like, okay, I'm feeling abandoned again, or I feel certain feelings because they come up over the course of our lifetime, because it's our journey, right? And I'm proud of myself that I don't attach to those feelings anymore or anger for like 1 year or 2 months, or feeling grief for a specific time. But of course they run through my system. And when I apply those teachings and to really sit with those feelings and to invite them into my being, but also to let them go in acceptance, I feel more balanced and I feel more happier. And it brings me back to also a sentence that just comes right now into my mind. When love and fear is present in one room, what goes away?
Well, they say that truth has a vibration, which is what you were getting to before in what you were saying a few minutes ago. Truth has a vibration. And when I saw Derek the first time, I knew he was my teacher. I remembered him. Something deep within me told me I've had lifetimes with this guy. And yet I was a Roman Catholic, which teaches there's no reincarnation. So my fear was, wait a minute, I've been taught there's no reincarnation. But my love, the vibration of love said, that's my teacher. How is that even possible? How is that possible to be in a room with someone after being what I now call a recovering Catholic, you know, where I've had all these teachings about Catholicism drilled into my head. I used to know scripture, some scripture I used to know by heart, like Corinthians and Revelations and the book of John. You know, I used to know scripture, and I could tell you different characters and the prophet Ezekiel, and but I could tell you these things because it was drilled into my consciousness as a child. But something so fearful in the way that it was driven in made me hate it. When I saw Derek and knew he was a dragged up Catholic, and that he wasn't rejecting his religion, he was incorporating the parts that made sense. And he was delivering something that I couldn't understand. And I said to him, what is that? And he goes, love. And I said, what religion? Love. What teachings? Love. And I'm just looking at him and he goes, love is the answer. Now, what is the question? Like, how do you argue with a feeling that you have inside? You can't argue with it. Look, try arguing with the feeling that you're having right now. It doesn't work. You can't argue with the feeling. You can argue with the thought, but you can't argue with a feeling. And so unconditional love is when you're in the presence of something or someone that completely accepts you with no strings attached whatsoever, even if you show up with addictions to drugs, alcohol, addiction to your thought, addiction to pain and suffering, addiction to pornography, whatever it is, they don't care. They love you just as you are, as you stand there, And they will look at you until you just start crying. Because they can hold a space of love for you because they fully understand that you are them. So when you, and here's something else, and I'm going to steal this from Derek. Derek has said this to me. He's also said it to a group of people, but he said it to me. He said, I'm sorry, Ray. Until you're ready for an experience, I can't give it to you. There's a very deep, profound meaning in that statement because he can't give me an experience that I have to have run through my being as experiential.
Yeah.
But once you have that, try unlearning the ABCs of spirituality.
Yeah.
Try unlearning the fact that you now know that you saw that teacher take something, literally wave their hand, take something out of the ethers that didn't exist there before, and then show it to you. You know, like, how do you explain that to your family members? You don't, first of all. You don't explain that to your family members. That was my first mistake when I returned from these trips. I'm shouting from rooftops that I basically found Jesus returned. That was a mistake.
Shoot the messenger.
Exactly. Yeah. And so for me, I've had to learn over time that the excitement was for me and that I don't need to be giving it away anymore like I used to. But I wanted to take all my family members and friends with me. So I was trying to wake them up because I had survivor's guilt. Grief, actually. I had grief that I had made it off the Titanic and they were drowning in their own suffering. And so Derek said to me, don't you understand? They loved you enough as a soul being, not as a human being, as a soul being. When you made your contract before you came back here, they loved you enough to drown on the Titanic for you. Which completely puts the anger that I had with my father on a whole other level, because I know that he's playing a role to get me to separate and detach from drama so that I can move towards unconditional love. But like you said, teachings are one thing. Application of the teachings are completely different. But if you don't know your triggers for why you're feeling these feelings and thinking you need another blue dress to make you happy, not you.
I know. I just wanted to show my blue dress.
Red dress. Red dress. I said red dress.
Okay.
But no, but thinking, you thinking that you need another car, another lamp, another TV, another picture of ISIS, right?
Another sex partner.
Another sex partner, another night at the gambling table, the poker table.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, another drink. Those are the things that we utilize to distract ourselves from feeling our feelings. That is the thing people are most afraid of, feeling their feelings. And the one they're most afraid of is the idea around death. But right next to that is grief. And grief we store in the lungs.
Grief will store in lungs and make you feel trapped to even express yourself and to really
Can't breathe.
Can't breathe. And still, it is the only emotion that helps us to liberate us and helps us to move through our way to enlightenment and to really set us up for our course and our life to fully give and be able to also receive love, because it's another way of being able to also receive unconditional love. I mean, the journey of receiving love, Ray, like what did what did you needed to learn about receiving love, besides the love that Derek has for you, but also in regards to your marriage?
Wow, that's a very good question. There's lots of things that I needed to learn about the journey to receiving love, but I think the one that comes to heart the quickest when you ask that question is that I was and am completely worthy of the very love that I give to everybody else. And I give a lot of love to people. You know why? It doesn't cost me anything. It's free. And I love people. And I do not love watching them suffer unnecessarily. But I've learned, for example, let's say Derek has said to me many times, you know, do you know that he said to me, Ray, he said, Ray, I make it sound like we're best friends. I want you to know I don't often have access to him like you and I talking like this, okay? It so happens that I hear him very clearly. That's a gift that I've developed over many incarnations. But mostly I hear him clearly for other people, not for me. Usually it's like, do your homework. I'm not going to tell you answers. He won't give me any answers. He never does. But I've had some encounters with him in the physical, many actually now, over 16 years or whatever it is at this point. Yeah, I met him in 2008. So yeah, I met him in February of 2008 actually for the first time. So it's just literally 16 years.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was early February, like February 6th or something like this, February 9th of 2008. So it's just been 16 years now. And I was young when I met him. I think I was younger than you are now. I'm going to be 47. I think I was 31 when I met him. So are you 30?
I'm 31.
I'm 30. So I was just age. I was just your age. So yeah, so well, 16 years actually. I was in February of 2008, I was 30. And I would have been 31 in June of that year, just like you, June 30.
We share a birthday. Just wanted to mention that we share a birthday together, Randy.
Share a birthday. So in February of 2008, I was still 30 years old. But you know, it's 16 years ago, and it, you know, I think his messaging was, it was so clear. It was, that which you think you see in me is you. And he's always been consistent with that. Always. He's never fled from that. But I remember when I saw him, it was magic incarnate. Now, what I find interesting, we were talking about aversion and attachment. We're talking about duality, right? Where you are in Bali, it's Tuesday morning, right? Tuesday morning, the 27th of February. And it's light out and the sun is coming through. Where I am, it's Monday evening, the 26th of February, and it's dark. So you've got the light and the dark on this call. You've got the masculine and the feminine on this call. You've got all the elements of yin and yang on this call. Light and dark, up and down, left and right, north and south, east and west. You have it all right here. And I think it's so appropriate that, you know, we're talking about duality, but you cannot have a manifested experience in this plane of existence that we think is reality on Earth, wherever this is. You can't have that without having duality. And then you have positive, negative, or negative, positive. And then you have neutral, which is us having this conversation. I worked in the electrical industry for 16 years. It's interesting. It's another 16 here tonight. And I only towards the tail end of my career did I learn about how power is generated. And I learned that, like, for my lights to be on, there are 3 wires that come to the house: positive, negative, and neutral. And if you don't have all 3, you can't have manifested electricity. Because if you have only the positive and the negative and they're wrapped together, you can actually, if they touch, they will arc and they will cause a fire or lightning, basically. So you need the neutral wire, which in an electrical panel in a house is attached to the ground wire that runs into the earth. So without grounding the positive and the negative, you cannot have a manifested reality that doesn't go on fire and blow up. So when you and I get on a call like this, I believe God is playing neutral. You and I are the positive and the negative, and there you have your arrowhead, right, of truth being shot at your audience so that they can have an experience of listening to this podcast. Right. Exactly. So I just find it's really beautiful that it's morning where you are tomorrow.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Right. It's evening where I am yesterday, you know, as far as you're concerned. And this is proof that time travel is possible. I mean, the fact that you're in Bali and I'm here and we're at the same place at the same time, but your calendar says the 27th, mine says the 26th. How is that possible without time travel? You're looking at it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That was such, it's always good to have stories to put into, or not stories, but like to have, to make sense of practical sense, like metaphors, in order to help to understand what is really going on in regards to what we what we are not able to grasp with our 5 senses. And you mentioned 16. I just wanted to ask the questions also for the people who are like watching or hearing the podcast. Think about the moment, or like think about it, like think about what has been happening 16 years ago in your time from now where you are. Was there anything specific? Did you end a relationship? Did you realize something? Was there something that you were relying on, didn't like said it? Was there something happening where you felt ashamed, or where someone died, or what was happening in your life 16 years ago? I'm just curious to see and to bridge the gap of the cycle and to closing out certain, or like to help to become aware of certain patterns and certain dynamics that we are continuing over the course of our lives, but we always have the choice to break out of them. And I feel, and to make the final circle back to the beginning of our conversation today, I believe that in regards of our current situation in the world and where we are heading to in expanding our and shifting our consciousness, we are also invited to see in our individual journey and in our individual life when the time is come to detach and to close the door from our programmings, from our patterns, from our beliefs, from our toxic behaviors, from people, places, circumstances, whatsoever, that don't evaluate and help us to grow anymore. And I feel that this conversation stirred a lot of, or I hope it stirred a lot of things up in our psyche and in our subconscious to help you release it and help. And if you need help, to go to people, to go to places, to go deeper into your heart and to hear what it has to say to you, because it will lead you.
Always. And do you know what 1 and 6 equals? 1 plus 6, 16. 1 plus 6 is 7.
7.
7, as far as I understand it, 7 is represents spiritually mystery and magic.
Yeah.
I believe when you were 15, you were a tennis pro.
I was a tennis pro, and I also was a professional bar hopper. Duality.
Yeah, no wonder you're seeking deeper meaning. It makes complete sense. You know, listen, I thoroughly enjoy when we get together like this, because I think if we can show people, more importantly than anything, Arabella, I think that we need to show people that we talk about consciousness. Have we ever even had a conversation around what the word consciousness actually means, you know? But essentially, without getting into too much detail as we're wrapping up the call, maybe that's for podcast number 3, but I will say, I feel like if we can have regular conversations and laugh and joke while talking about higher consciousness things, then maybe it makes us a little bit more accessible to the average person, right? And that we're not like, we haven't achieved something that they can't do themselves. The reality is,
Hell
as I
no.
said, as I said earlier in the hell no, right? As I said earlier in the call, what were you looking at before you stepped onto the spiritual path? What was your life about? What were you doing if you weren't sitting with these things? You know, we look at material things and we think that it brings happiness, only to find that that happiness is often short-lived. And that's why we buy another dress, buy another car, buy another pair of jeans, whatever the case may be, sneakers, whatever it might be. And the truth is, the only type of happiness that lasts is the one that comes from within. All the other ones we just named come from without. So consciousness could be described as the journey towards raising your awareness that everything comes from within, not from without.
I love that. I love that. And that helps to really put the teachings into ground and to understand why sometimes we feel, in order to reach outside of ourselves, in order to fill something what we are able to give ourselves, but we are not ready to access it. And
Sure.
and that's where I want to close our conversation today, but I have 2 more questions for you, because
Sure.
you were talking in the beginning of the masculine and of the feminine, and what masculinity and, you know, the patriarchy system. What does masculinity means to you?
Well, the obvious answer would be the archetype of man, right? What a male energy is, right? And things that come to mind or to my heart are like, you know, the old things like hunter gatherer, provider, is somebody who protects the family, these types of things, right? But truly, in my humble opinion, and it is just my opinion, and if somebody else doesn't agree with it, that's okay. Please just toss it out, you know, take whatever sticks and whatever doesn't stick, that's fine. But for me, in my humble opinion, masculinity is, in the present day, the ability to be male or have male attributes and yet still be vulnerable, and believing that you don't have to put on a show about what it means to be a man, but just to actually feel what it means to be alive and be able to connect to everything around you. That, to me, is an aligned masculine energy. One who still may provide, one who still may hunt and gather, one who may still teach his children how to be a person in the world, whereas the feminine might still be the one who nurtures, the one who provides wisdom with how she sets the example in a household, for example. But think about this. Nothing the masculine does can occur without the unfoldment process. So nothing the masculine does can occur without the feminine. But nothing the feminine allows to unfold can occur without the masculine energy of doing something. So like aversion and attachment, we each have both energies within us. To me, masculine is the energy of doing, but perhaps in the new world, not a patriarchal world, but in a balanced world, masculine would be that energy, that male type energy that does something, but in an aligned way of love and truth and prosperity for all, not prosperity for self.
Thank you, Ray. This is very profound.
You said you had 2 questions. That was only one.
Yeah, hold on. I need to get my charger.
No problem.
Second. Okay, now we have a little disturbance here because I don't have a thing to put my charger in. Oh,
Well, it seems the call's coming to an end anyway.
yeah, that's true. I mean, hold on. This is not good. This is not good. Fuck. I need to cut this out for sure. Bear with me, Ray. Bear with me,
No
Ray.
worries at all. No worries.
I have here. And while I'm doing this really quick right now, okay. In 1 second, everything is finished again.
Worries.
This is actually a perfect example between between the yin and the yang. Right now, I experienced a little bit of chaos within my system. And I'm like, oh my God, like I did not think about the fact that, you know, maybe I need my electricity, my plug-in, my charger, because I just felt totally okay with having it on, yeah, the battery that I had it. But while I was, you know, becoming a little bit nervous, the masculine, you in this point, hold its space and helped me to really find a solution in a more calmer way.
And yet, to get there, the feminine had to act, which is the masculine.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I was essentially saying. So you had a second question before we close out, right?
Yeah, I wanted to first of all also mention, thank you so much for letting us into your heart and to providing us with all of your wisdom that you gain through your experiences. And I love to have those conversations with you because they're just mind-blowing, and sometimes it helps to sit with them for a while in order to let them move through your system and to not attach to totally fully making it sense. And sometimes it just helps to feel it and to feel the energy, and then sometimes to re-watch it or re-listen it, to re-listening to it again, and then to understand, oh, it does make perfect sense, and it's totally, I totally feel that way. because that is how we expand, and that is how expansion of our own consciousness feels like in our body. And I just wanted to say thank you for also giving us your what's the English word? Opinion? Not, it's not an opinion, it's like a perspective. It's the perspective of what masculinity means to you. And it does mean a lot to me. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And the other question I had was, is there anything what we can do to practice receiving love?
Yeah. Great question. So first of all, thank you for having me on again. I think it's good to do this. I think that it'll be good for the planet if we do this more often. What we can do to practice more self-love, yes. First of all, I don't know how your audience is perceiving me right now, okay? But based on how you responded to me a moment ago, I would imagine that your audience might be perceiving me similarly to the way that you did, which is that I was holding space and that I was being gentle and even, and I'm not always gentle and even.
Yeah.
And that might be hard for some people to believe. But I said at the beginning on purpose, at the beginning of this call today, I said on purpose that I still have triggers. I'm in a human body.
Yeah.
And so if I'm in a human body, then I'm going to have the stressors on my system, in my system, just like anybody else would. I'm practicing responding, not reacting. But I said on your first podcast that you had me on that I grew up in a very violent household. And in my other household, I grew up semi-ignored, right? So there was two different things going on there. And even if my parents came on tonight and they told you, both sets of parents, and they said that he didn't grow up in a violent household, he didn't grow up in a household where he was ignored. That was my experience of the two households. Now, I think anybody would tell you, I did definitely grow up in a violent setting, okay?
Yeah.
Most days. And what I will tell you is that because of that, I'm still working those triggers out of my system. So when they arise, and this is the long answer to your question, when those triggers arise, they are maddening at times. And I also feel like, am I going crazy? Oh my God. But that's an opportunity to go, wow, it's amazing how quick these thoughts come in to create a narrative just so that I know something. Because my ego does not want to be in a position of not knowing something. And I started the call off that way. So to end it this way is very good. So, you know, you start creating these narratives of lack of love. You start creating narratives of you don't deserve love. You start creating narratives of I deserve less than love. When in actuality, when those triggers unfold, that's your greatest opportunity to take a breath and breathe into the moment, not into denial or hiding. So to answer your question, how to receive more self-love is also to give more self-love in moments where you believe it is absent. So in the moment, this is when I coach with people, Arabella, you would know this firsthand, actually. I coach people to remember that the trigger is the greatest opportunity to move into a space called observer. When you're in observer, you can either beat yourself up or you can go, oh my gosh, look what's unfolding. I caught you. I caught you. And you can breathe into it and go, this is coming up for my awakening. is not coming up to hurt me. And in that practice is a gradual opportunity to grow and work through the layers of the onion. Break it down, but don't be attached to the layers of the onion, because I can assure you the minute that you break it down, God will place another onion there. So you have to just be willing to be a playful participant in life. And when you're willing to accept that karma is good, bad, indifferent, and it's all happening all the time and it's always unfolding, it's only then that you can transcend its effect on you. And when you transcend its effect, you can argue or debate with someone, karma doesn't exist anymore. And if karma doesn't exist anymore, now I can create my karma. And that is my understanding of the journey to self-love and receiving more and more self-love. And the more I do this, what I find is the more that it comes back towards me in the form of people saying, thank you for holding space. Because they're perceiving me as a loving being. But this loving being didn't just arrive on the scene loving. He did when he was born. Then he had a series of experiences that were very unloving. And then he had to work his way back towards love. And that's what you're referring to. And that's been a process that is not at all something that happened overnight. Oh, I went to a guru and all of a sudden everything was fixed and everything was better. Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, when I went to the guru, things got a lot worse for a while because all of the stuff I buried and hid from had to rise, because in the rising, it has a chance to leave out the crown chakra. If it doesn't rise, it can't go. So you're lucky that your triggers are coming up, because if they come up, they can come out. If they're not coming up, they cannot come out. And although it sounds like a contradiction that our triggers are rising, all this stuff, oh my God, all my shit is up. Yeah, well, congratulations, you're welcome. That's the way the universe is actually set up. So the journey to self-love, I think the advice that I can give is let your stuff be present and watch it out of your reality. And use your breath. Your breath is your greatest attribute. There's nothing that doesn't happen on the breath. Nothing. Even when you hold your breath, you're holding your breath. It's happening on the breath. So when you get scared, it's happening on the breath. When you're angry, it's on the breath. There's nothing that cannot happen on the breath. So why not use it consciously? One conscious breath a day can change your life. How long does it take? 6 seconds? Do we not all have 6 seconds? When you're in the shower, when you're in the car or something.
Yeah.
Thank
you, Ray. Thank you,
You're
Ray.
welcome.
That I know it helps a lot of people, and especially knowing that we are not so different than the rest of us. We all carry same emotions within us, and we all need to deal with certain events that really shaked us up to our existence and to invited us to ask questions of who we actually really are. And when we are able to allow ourselves to feel our feelings and allow ourselves to experience healing in the form of also allowing pain and grief into our being, in order to know that it will liberate us and is there for us to grow on all levels, and that we don't need to do this journey on ourselves and on our own, that there are a lot of people out there in the world who you feel pulled towards, that can help you, guide you, I believe that it makes life tremendously easier and happier as we started the call.
Brighter.
And brighter. Yeah. Thank you.
Well said. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Ray, so much for today's episode. And is there anything before we close? Is there anything on your heart that you want to share before we say goodbye?
Only this. I mean, if there's something that we said today that sparked hope or interest or further questions and you need assistance, that you'll reach out to one of us. I mean, Bella is one of the brightest souls I've ever met. You know, it's important to understand that there are people who may or may not call themselves teachers, but they are by their example. And, you know, if you have the opportunity to get in front of a conscious coach who can help reflect to you the best parts of you and the areas that could be even better, if you could work through the mirrored triggers and the projections that you're putting out, you have one of the greatest karmas, greatest graces that exist. Capitalize on that. Ask for help. You know, that's what I would say. Otherwise, the only thing I would say is blessings be upon you, you know?
Thank you, Ray. I will also put your link into the description. You can also rewatch. I would highly recommend to rewatch the first episode and stay tuned for the third and the fifth and I forgot the fourth, the third and the fourth and the fifth episode that are following. I don't like the number 4 because it means like shaking up like the corners, but it's because we had this conversation. Destruction comes with creation, creation comes with destruction. Everything is duality, and it's necessary in order to help us evolve.
Well, you need the number 3 for manifesting. We talked about that before, but the number 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? The 4 corners, that's the grounded reality of the manifestation energy. So it's not so much about shaking up. It's more about the grounded reality of the new manifestation being manifest. So, you know, if they say that 5 is forward progress and change, maybe that's what you were referring to, but I
was referring to, remember when I had an earthquake here and something was like shaking up literally my ground. Since then,
foundation.
My foundation. And since then I'm like, yeah, I just don't like the number 4 anymore. You know, I do like the number 4, but you know, I'm happy because I'm 31. I'm happy when I'm turning 32.
Maybe you're moving from like to love.
Maybe. I do hope that.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to future calls too.
Me too, Ray. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Bye.